1977 The Amazing Spider-Man TV series. Starring Nicholas Hammond as Spider-Man. Chapter 01 and 02, The Deadly Dust, also known as Spider-Man Strikes Back. Spider-Man is patrolling the city high on building tops. Sirens are blaring all over. We see what the commotion is all about. A young lady is on a ledge of one of the high-rise, attempting to jump. Captain Barbera is on the scene talking the lady out of what she's planning to do. Spider-Man slowly crawled towards the lady and caught her before she could jump. He guided her back towards safety in the hands of Captain Barbera. Spider-Man then went for a quick getaway. In the Daily Bugle, after a quick chat with Rita, Peter Parker wanted to talk to editor, Jonah Jameson about a story idea. Jameson quickly turned down whatever Peter was going to say. Rita tried to intervene and helped out Peter, but Jameson is just being stubborn. Peter appreciates Rita's help but did not want her to get in trouble. In Miami's The Weekly Examiner, reporter Gail Hoffman was tasked by her editor to get an exclusive interview with Spider-Man for their paper. The editor wanted Gail to do it because she is one of the paper's more persuasive journalists. Several college students in a university, including Peter, are in an uproar against their professor who plans to have a plutonium experiment in the campus. Their concern is that somebody might steal the dangerous element and build a bomb. The three students want to place the matter in their own hands, and is considering having Peter join them in their crazy crusade. The reporter Gail is interviewing a scientist regarding spiders and his thoughts about the Spider-Man. In the Daily Bugle, Peter is convincing Jameson about writing a story on the professor's plutonium. When Gail arrived wanting to meet Peter and talked about Spider-Man. Gail continued prying information out of Peter about Spider-Man, hoping she could meet the superhero and interview him. Suddenly Peter's spider senses alerted him of a nearby danger. In the nearby lab, the three classmates of Peter who was against the plutonium experiment were in the lab stealing the said element. Peter has changed into Spider-Man and on his way to stop the threat. The three students still in the lab are carefully transferring the radioactive material into a safe container that they can carry away. Spider-Man sneakily arrived on top of the lab building, but the guards saw him and called him out. This alerted the thieving students and they quickly ran away with their prize. Captain Barbera arrived in the lab. He was interviewing the professor about the missing element and the threat it poses. Parker arrived in the scene not happy that the plutonium is gone. The captain interviewed the guards who wrongly accused Spider-Man as the plutonium thief. The thieves are unhappy that people are not taking the missing plutonium seriously, planned to actually build a bomb with it. In Switzerland, an arms dealer known as Mr. White learned about the stolen plutonium. He went to New York with his men and tries to retrieve it for their evil organization. The student thieves are starting to work with the plutonium for the bomb they are making. Peter is talking to Gale about the dangers of the stolen radioactive element. The conversation then turned to Spider-Man. Gale is asking Peter why is he sure that Spider-Man did not steal the hazardous material. Peter defends Spider-Man passionately, telling her that Spider-Man is a responsible person. Mr. White then called Peter pretending to be a news anchor who wants to interview him about the stolen plutonium. In Captain Barbera's office, the FBI is curious about the progress in the investigation. The agent also shared to the captain that they are looking at Peter as the student who is capable to make a bomb. Peter, going to the fake interview, started to sense possible danger. The evil Mr. White is convinced that Peter has the stolen plutonium and have his men go after him. Climbing out the window, Peter and Gale was able to escape the clutches of Mr. White and his men. Thinking it is not safe to go back to Peter's apartment, Gale decided to have Peter stay in her hotel room. Barbera visited Parker's apartment but he was not there. They decided to contact the Bugle. This info was overheard by White's man. The students are still busy working on their bomb, gathering materials to construct their device. The female student is starting to feel some ill effects from the radiation. Captain Barbera was able to locate Parker in the hotel room of Gale, where they hid from Mr. White and his men. Parker was still a suspect for the missing plutonium. The captain brought Peter to the station for questioning. Mr. White is still on the trail of Peter, determined to get the element. Parker went to the Bugle after he was released. Jameson, furious with Peter thinking he is involved with the missing plutonium, fired the young photographer. The students are placing their finishing touches on the bomb they made. The ill feeling of the female student worsens. Her classmates decide to bring her to a hospital. Peter is angry at being fired. Gale said that Spider-Man can clear him if he comes clean about the plutonium. In the hospital, the doctor said that she needs to report to the authorities that the girl has radioactive poisoning. Rita phoned Peter about the news. Peter quickly connects that his classmates has something to do with the missing plutonium. Unknown to Peter, he is being tailed by Mr. White's man. Peter confronts his classmates. They told Peter that they didn't plan to arm it, just wanted to point out to their professor how easy it was to do. Mr. White's henchman heard about the bomb. Peter had to leave to secretly check the bomb his classmates made, but Gale arrived and wanted to tag along. Peter needed to lose Gale, so he went in the men's room and sneaked out as Spider-Man. Spider-Man and Mr. White and his men are now in a race to get the bomb, in the student's place. Mr. White was first to the bomb. Spider-Man took the opportunity to gather intel about the mysterious Mr. White, investigating his car and putting a tracker on it. Mr. White inspects the bomb, which is currently a dud, but with simple modifications it can become very deadly. Spider-Man on the rooftop fought with Mr. White's men. They were able to best him and throw him off the roof. Mr. White drove off with the bomb. Peter in Captain Barbera's office informed them of the likelihood of the bomb to be used as a weapon in New York, and how devastating the effects would be. Peter then called Rita, to have the plate number of Mr. White's car checked. Gale arrived at Peter's apartment furious at being left at the hospital. Rita called back Peter with information. This gave him a clue on where the location of the bomb is. Mr. White arrived in Los Angeles, planning what to do with the bomb he acquired. He is thinking of selling it or use it to blackmail the country. Peter and Gale went to the Daily Bugle. Peter got his job back and he is now trying to convince Jameson to send him to California because he knows that the bomb is there. Peter went into details why it is important to find the bomb, and the devastation it can cause in the wrong hands. Jameson and Gale tried to negotiate for their respective papers how the news will be delivered, if they locate and stop Mr. White's plans. With much convincing, Jameson agreed, but he and Gale is coming along. All three of them are bound for Los Angeles. When they arrived in Los Angeles, they stayed in a hotel. They agreed to meet up in the pool area and plan their next move. Jameson and Gale was curious where Peter was at. Gale tried to look for him. Peter was on the rooftop, activating a device to hone in on the spider tracker he placed on Mr. White's car. Gale saw Peter using the device. Gale said that she suspects Peter as being Spider-Man. Peter just laughed it off. In Mr. White's secret villa, he received a phone call tipping him that somebody is following them. Mr. White sets off his plan for the bomb. Captain Barbera received a phone call that Mr. White is blackmailing the whole country for $1 billion. Rita checking in with Peter's group who are driving around downtown Los Angeles looking for Mr. White's car. When they spotted it, they decided to follow. White's men noticed that they are being followed and tried to lose them. They are on a thrilling car chase, with Peter's car closely gaining on the bad guy's car. When the bad guys decided to release some tacks to puncture their pursuers' tires. With their tires punctured, Peter has to find an alternate vehicle to use to chase after the bad guys. He spotted a nearby motorcycle shop, he hopped on one of the bikes and continued the chase. Gail also followed in her own motorcycle. Jameson looked for something that he could ride so that he could follow them. White's henchmen noticed that they are still being followed and tried to lose the reporters in a studio backlot. Anticipating incoming danger, Peter changed into his Spider-Man outfit, and is about to fight White's henchmen. When Gail arrived crashing her motorcycle in the middle of them, Spider-Man helped her up and advises her to run to escape the bad guys. Spider-Man fought valiantly against two well-trained fighters. He also protected Gail from them. Mr. White's men were able to take off when Jameson arrived. Gail was ecstatic to finally see Spider-Man in action. Peter noticed that his spider tracker fell off the men's car, leaving them without means of finding Mr. White's hideout. Mr. White's man reported back to him. They were concerned that Spider-Man is also after them. White decided to move forward his timeline of detonating the bomb. At the hotel room, Jameson heard from Rita Mr. White's plan. They are convinced that they are planning to have the bomb explode at New York, but Peter thinks it will be somewhere in Los Angeles. Still trying to locate Mr. White, Peter went to the building of the recording studio where they last saw White's car. They talked to the secretary in the building, who happens to know Mr. White because White owns the building. The secretary alerted White's men, who arrived in the building planning to take care of Peter and Gail. Peter's spider alarm went haywire when he sensed that Gail was in danger. Peter rushed to save Gail, but he was late, as the men already abducted her to be brought to Mr. White. Peter interrogated the secretary to give up White's location. At White's hideout, they are concerned that Peter got away. They started to prepare setting up their bomb device. White revealed to Gail where he plans to detonate the bomb and who his target is. Peter was able to locate Mr. White's hideout. He changed into Spider-Man and scales the cliff beside White's villa. Spider-Man sneaked inside the house, and had to fight off White's henchmen in order to save Gail. Finally, he was able to take down two of White's formidable fighters and untie Gale. Gale relayed to Spider-Man the plans of Mr. White. Spider-Man took off to stop the destruction, while Gale called the authorities. Mr. White is on top of one of the new buildings setting up the bomb. Spider-Man was able to convince someone to take him up a helicopter, so he could scout where the location of the bomb is. Knowing where the bomb is, Spider-Man jumped out of his helicopter and with his web he took a ride on Mr. White's helicopter and was able to maneuver himself towards the rooftop where the bomb is located. After a few minutes of nerve-wracking swinging in the air, Spider-Man jumped on the rooftop and quickly searched for the ticking bomb. He carefully navigates the boundless wires, making sure to not accidentally have the bomb blow up. Skillfully, Spider-Man was able to stop the detonation. The hero has saved the president as well as the whole downtown Los Angeles. Unfortunately, the villainous Mr. White got away. Mr. Jameson was happy Peter got him an exclusive photo of Spider-Man stopping the bomb. While Gale is still trying to get an exclusive interview with Spider-Man, and still has her suspicion that Pete is the superhero. Thank you for helping GeekWatch reach 100 subscribers. It would be our pleasure if you continue the journey with us, as we aim for our next milestone, 500 subscribers. So, if you haven't subscribed yet, please click on the subscribe button, hit the thumbs up like, ring the notification bell, write your thoughts in our comment section and please share the video for others to join our watch. When we reach 500 subs, 2 lucky Geek Watchers will get a chance to win these superhero Funko Pops.